Ladies and gentlemen, or worse, have you spent hours, maybe even days, replaying one sentence someone said, getting angrier each time? Now imagine this. What if I told you that starting today, there is a way to make yourself completely unshakable? That no insult, no betrayal, no backhanded comment could reach your peace. That you could walk through the loudest chaos and still remain calm, composed, and untouchable. This isn't about pretending you're peaceful. This is about becoming someone who no longer reacts, and that is power. Stay with me, because by the end of this talk you won't just understand how to stay calm. You'll become someone no one can disturb. Ever again, let's begin with something we all know, but rarely admit. Most people walk around with invisible buttons all over them, and life, especially people, they know exactly how to push them. You get cut off in traffic. Someone comments on your appearance. A colleague talks over you in a meeting. Your partner forgets something important, and suddenly, snap, you're angry, hurt, insulted, spiraling. But have you ever stopped to ask, why does it get to me? Why am I so easily disturbed? The answer lies in what I call emotional immunity. See, just like our body fights off viruses, our mind and emotions can be trained to fight off negativity. But unlike physical immunity, which happens over time or through medicine, emotional immunity is a conscious discipline. And here's the secret. Emotional immunity begins the moment you stop taking everything personally. That sounds simple, but it's not, because we're raised in a world that tells us your reputation matters, your pride matters, how people treat you matters. So we become hypersensitive. Everything becomes a potential attack. Every word, every tone, every facial expression. But what if I told you most of the things that offend you aren't even about you? The person who snapped at you at work, they were already in a bad mood before they walked into the room. The rude comment online, it came from someone who barely knows you and probably doesn't like themselves. The friend who forgot to invite you, they're operating from their reality, not from your expectations. Yet we collect these slights like emotional bruises, and we carry them around day after day. But let me ask you this. Do you really want to give that much power to other people? Power over your peace, your mood, your self-worth, because that's what anger is. It's an admission that someone else is in control. It says, you poked me, and I let you. But immunity, that's different. Emotional immunity doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you've trained yourself to feel, but not react, to notice, but not absorb, to witness, but not carry. It's the ability to say, I see what's happening, I see what they're trying to do, but I won't let it in. Think about your phone. You get spam calls all the time. Do you answer everyone? No. You block the number, you move on. That's exactly what emotional immunity feels like. You develop an inner firewall, a protective filter that says, this doesn't belong to me, it's not mine to carry. And here's the beautiful part. Once you begin to master this, you start to feel powerful. Not because people stop bothering you, but because they no longer have the ability to. You walk into rooms and the same triggers are there. The same gossip, the same disrespect, the same chaos, but you are not the same. You respond differently, you feel light. You smile internally because you know. You're not reactive anymore, you're free. And that kind of peace, it's rare, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's felt, and people start noticing. They'll say, why don't you get upset like you used to? And you'll smile, because the answer is simple. I stopped giving out keys to my peace of mind. You took your power back. You built immunity. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. You'll still get triggered. You'll still stumble. But each time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen your immunity. Each time you forgive instead of holding on, you strengthen your immunity. Each time you walk away from drama instead of diving in, you strengthen your immunity. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally unshakable, and that's a power no one can take from you unless you give it away. So remember this, the world won't change, people won't stop being difficult, but you can become someone so grounded, so emotionally sovereign, that nothing, not words, not insults, not noise, can touch your core. That's emotional immunity, and once you taste it, anger feels like a burden you'll never want to carry again. One of the biggest lies we've been told, and told ourselves, is this: they made me angry. Think about how often we say it. He made me mad. She ruined my day. They got under my skin. We say it without even thinking, because we've been conditioned to believe that our emotional state is determined by someone else's behavior, that we are helpless in the face of rudeness, criticism, or disrespect. That if someone is cruel, it's normal to explode, that if someone ignores us, it's natural to feel worthless, that we don't choose our reactions, they are just automatic. But here's the truth you don't hear enough: nobody can make you feel anything unless you allow it. Yes, things will happen. People will offend you, misunderstand you, criticize you, but your reaction, that is always your responsibility. And when you take responsibility for your reaction, you take back control of your life. There is a moment, a small, powerful space between what happens and how you respond, and in that space is your freedom. In that space is your transformation. That's where real power lives. Most people never notice that space. They go from trigger to reaction in milliseconds, like someone presses a button and boo, anger, frustration, defensiveness. It's automatic, like muscle memory, but just because it's a habit doesn't mean it has to be permanent. What if you could train yourself to pause in that space, to breathe before reacting, to observe what you're feeling before you act on it? Because the strongest version of you isn't the one who always has the last word or the perfect comeback. The strongest version of you is the one who can sit with discomfort and still respond with clarity, calm, and control. You don't need to match people's energy. You don't need to fire back just because they shot first. You don't need to defend every opinion, correct every misunderstanding, or prove your worth in every conversation. When someone tries to provoke you, your reaction writes the rest of the story. If you respond with fire, the fire grows. But if you respond with stillness, with intentional silence, the fire dies out, because it has nothing left to burn. And you know what happens when you start living like that. You stop getting played. You stop being predictable. You stop dancing to the tune of people who want to steal your peace, because you've changed the rules. You've taken the power out of their hands and placed it where it always belonged, in yours. People will test you. Life will test you. That's not going to stop. But your ability to rewrite the rules means you're no longer a puppet on strings being pulled by external chaos. You've cut the strings. You've grounded yourself, and yes, it takes effort. It takes awareness. You'll still slip. You'll still catch yourself reacting. But every time you pause, every time you choose differently, every time you walk away from a battle not worth fighting, you rewrite your story a little more. You go from being someone who reacts to life to someone who responds with purpose. Reaction is instinct. Response is intelligence. Reaction is survival. Response is mastery. Reaction gives your power away. Response brings your power home, so the next time you feel your blood rising, your ego flaring up, your emotions boiling, pause, just pause, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this who I want to be right now? Am I reacting out of habit or choosing from strength? Because the moment you start questioning your reaction is the moment you start controlling it. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to win back your center. Let them throw their words. Let them try to trigger you. You have bigger goals than proving a point. You're here to build peace, not participate in pettiness. Remember, you can't control other people's energy, but you can control whether you let it enter your space. And when you learn to do that, you're no longer just surviving chaos. You're transcending it. That is the power of rewriting the rules of reaction. And once you do, no one, not even your worst critic, can pull you back into the old version of you. Because you've evolved and you've made the one decision that changes everything. I no longer react. I choose to respond. Let's talk about something that controls so many people without them even realizing it: offense. Getting offended, feeling insulted, taking things personally. We live in a world where everyone seems to be walking around with emotional landmines, ready to explode at the slightest touch, a look, a tone. A comment, suddenly, someone's entire mood shifts, days are ruined, relationships are strained, all because of something someone said. But here's the thing, most of the offense you feel is an illusion. It's not real, it's not objective, It's not something that exists independently. It's a story you create in your own mind based on how you interpret someone else's words or actions. And here's what's even more surprising. The majority of the time, it has nothing to do with you. When someone insults you, criticizes you, or acts disrespectfully, it feels personal. Of course it does. That's how our ego processes it. They're attacking me. But pause for a second and ask yourself this. Are they really attacking me, or are they revealing themselves? Because people act from who they are, not from who you are. A rude person is rude because they're carrying pain or insecurity. A critic is critical because they haven't learned how to love themselves. A gossiper talks behind your back because they don't have peace in their own soul. You just happen to be the target, the placeholder, the surface where they projected their chaos, but it wasn't about you. You were standing in front of their storm, and for a moment you thought the storm was yours. But here's the freedom in this realization. When you understand that offense is a reflection of them, not a definition of you, you start to see things differently. You don't internalize the insult, you don't absorb the energy, you don't carry the emotion, you let it pass like wind, like noise, like something that never belonged to you in the first place. There's a famous quote that says, "What offends you reveals you," and it's true. When something offends you deeply, it's usually touching a wound that already exists within you. Someone questions your intelligence and you get furious, not because they're right, but because maybe deep down you still doubt your own value. Someone ignores you and you feel disrespected, not because you're invisible, but because you're afraid you are. Offense feeds off your unresolved pain, but once you start healing those parts of yourself, once you become more secure, more grounded, more whole, things stop hitting you the same way. You become emotionally bulletproof, not because people stop shooting, but because the bullets can't pierce anything solid. Let people talk. Let them throw their little jabs. Let them misunderstand you. You know who you are. You know your truth. And if someone's opinion can shake you, it means you gave it weight it never deserved. Do you know how much power you give away every time you get offended? Every time you allow someone's ignorance to dictate your emotional state. Every time you hand over your peace in exchange for temporary validation or ego defense. You are not a puppet on a string. You are not a slave to people's comments. You are not required to respond to every trigger that walks past you. You are allowed to rise above it, to let it go, to smile when they expect you to snap, to stay still when they expect a storm, because you are not here to be controlled. You're here to be centered. Don't let temporary people create permanent reactions. Don't let insecure souls drag you down into their war, and don't let every word stick to you like glue. Most of it isn't even meant for you. Someone else's lack of kindness is not your emergency. Someone else's poor behavior doesn't require your emotional investment. And someone else's opinion doesn't define your worth. Not now, not ever. The illusion of offense is just that, an illusion, a trick of the mind. A lie we buy into when we haven't yet stepped fully into our power, but once you do, once you decide that not everything deserves your attention, not everything deserves your energy, you become unstoppable. Not because the world changes, but because your lens does, and that lens, once clear, will show you the truth. They never had the power to offend you. You just forgot how powerful you actually are. Most people don't realize this, but a lot of the anger, frustration, and emotional chaos they experience comes down to one simple confusion. They've mistaken their ego for their identity. See, ego and identity aren't the same. Your identity is who you truly are, your values, your essence, your character when no one's watching. Your ego, on the other hand, is who you think you need to be in front of people. It's the mask, the armor. The part of you that's obsessed with image, status, control, approval, and being right. And here's the trap. When someone challenges your ego, you think they're attacking your identity, so you defend. You explode, you argue, not because your soul is in danger, but because your ego got bruised. Think about it. Someone corrects you in front of others. You feel disrespected. Someone disagrees with your opinion. You feel threatened. Someone doesn't praise you or notice your effort. You feel invisible. But why? Because your ego is fragile. It constantly seeks validation, recognition, and comfort. It wants to be admired, agreed with, applauded. And when that doesn't happen, it throws a tantrum. It tells you things like, how dare they talk to me like that? Or I have to prove them wrong, or I need to defend myself right now. But your identity, your real self, it doesn't need all that noise. It doesn't need to win arguments. It doesn't need to be seen, liked, or celebrated to feel whole. It doesn't get shaken by opinions or silence or rejection. It stands firm because it knows its worth isn't up for negotiation. The problem is, we spend so much time living in our ego that we forget who we really are beneath it. We let our pride make decisions for us. We let our insecurities masquerade as confidence. We let every little perceived insult pull us into battles that aren't even worth fighting. And every time we do that, we give our peace away for free. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you gotten angry not because something truly mattered, but because your ego got poked? How many times have you walked away from a conversation replaying it in your head, thinking of better comebacks, not because the issue was serious, but because you felt you weren't heard or respected enough? That's ego. Your identity wouldn't waste that energy. Your identity would have let it go, moved on, stayed still, because here's what you need to understand. Ego reacts, identity responds, ego is loud. Identity is quiet, ego needs proof, identity already knows. The more you let go of ego, the lighter you feel. You stop needing to correct everyone. You stop needing to control how others see you. You stop needing to be right all the time. You learn to be okay with being misunderstood. You learn to be okay with silence instead of applause. You learn to be okay with letting small things slide, because not everything is worth your time or energy. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. It takes strength to walk away when your ego is begging you to fight. It takes maturity to stay grounded when everything in you wants to rise up and prove a point. But every time you choose identity over ego, you grow, you rise, you separate yourself from the noise. People will still say things, still challenge you, still try to test you. That won't stop, but your reaction can. You don't have to shrink, you don't have to snap. You don't have to justify your existence to anyone, because the moment you stop feeding your ego, you start fueling your freedom. Let people have their opinions. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away thinking they won. It's fine, because the real win is not losing your peace. And the only way to hold onto that peace is to know the difference between your ego, which constantly seeks battles, and your identity, which is already whole without them. Let the ego starve, let it go hungry for attention, praise, or revenge. You're not here to feed that noise, you're here to rise above it. And the moment you remember who you are, without the mask, without the noise, without the need to be anything other than still and strong, that's the moment you become unshakable. That's the moment you choose identity over ego. And that changes everything. There's a shift that happens in your life when you stop being the person who's constantly in the drama and start being the one who can see it from a distance. That shift. It's called becoming the observer. Most people go through life as reactors. Someone says something, they react. Someone gives them attitude, they match it. Someone brings negativity, they absorb it and carry it for the rest of the day. They're like emotional mirrors, reflecting everything thrown at them, good or bad. No filter, no control, no space between stimulus and response. Just automatic reaction, but there's another way to live. A calmer, wiser, more powerful way, and that's by stepping back, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and becoming the observer. What does that mean? It means instead of immediately reacting, you take a moment to watch. You step outside of the emotional storm and ask, what's really happening here? You don't suppress your emotions, you don't numb yourself, you simply create space between what's happening and how you respond to it. That space, that's everything, because in that space you don't just feel, you see. You see that most of what upsets you isn't worth the energy. You see that not everything needs a reaction. You see that people often act from their wounds, not from logic. When someone lashes out at you, your reactive mind wants to lash back. But your observer mind says, they must be going through something. That wasn't about me. You don't ignore it. You just don't become it. You watch the emotion arise, and instead of grabbing it, you let it pass. You become the calm center in the middle of the noise. Not cold, not numb, just aware, just still. This is not about weakness. This is about power, because real power isn't in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. And to do that, you have to stop identifying with every emotion that shows up. Anger shows up, you watch it. Insecurity shows up, you notice it. Jealousy, irritation, ego, they'll all show up, but you don't have to entertain them. You treat them like visitors. Ah, I see you. I know why you're here, but you don't control me today. That's what the observer does. It doesn't resist, it doesn't react, it understands, and with understanding comes peace. Imagine walking into a situation where someone tries to provoke you, maybe even on purpose. In your old mindset, you'd react. You'd get sucked in, you'd say things you regret, but now, as the observer, you see their game, you see their pain, you see their need for attention or control or validation, and instead of getting pulled into their chaos, you just smile. Not out of arrogance, but out of clarity, because you've elevated, you've outgrown that level of engagement. Now, this doesn't mean you become passive. Being the observer doesn't mean you never speak up or defend your values. It means when you do, it's deliberate, it's clean, it's not emotional flailing, it's calm strength. You don't yell, you don't over-explain, you simply set your boundary, say your truth, and let the rest go. No overthinking, no mental replay, no emotional residue. This is the kind of emotional clarity people spend their whole lives chasing. And you can access it just by shifting how you see the world. You are not your thoughts. You are not your reactions. You are the awareness behind them. And when you start living from that space, everything changes. You stop being tossed around by every insult, every bad mood, every misunderstanding. You stop carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. You stop being emotionally hijacked by temporary triggers. Instead, you move through life with quiet authority. You hear more, you see more. But you say less and feel lighter because you've chosen not to be the emotional puppet of the world around you. You've chosen to be the observer, and in that role, nothing controls you, nothing disturbs you. Because you finally understand, it's not the noise outside that disrupts your peace, it's the reaction inside. And now you're done reacting, you're just watching, and in that stillness, you've found freedom. You know what's rare today? Peace, real, untouchable, unbothered peace, in a world where everyone's trying to prove something, flex their opinions, flex their lifestyles, flex their strength, their followers, their bank accounts. Let me tell you what the real flex is. Peace, not the fake kind where you post quotes about self. Love while you're still silently boiling inside. Not the kind where you pretend not to care, but deep down you're waiting for the apology, the validation, the attention. I'm talking about the kind of peace that doesn't move when things around you shake. The kind of peace that makes people wonder, how is he so calm? Why isn't she reacting? Why doesn't that bother them like it would bother me? Because peace like that, it's not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to be explained. It's just there, unbothered, still, powerful. It's easy to lose your cool. Anyone can react. Anyone can get triggered and throw words like knives. That's not strength. That's just impulse. But to stay calm when disrespected, to choose silence when provoked, to keep your spirit still in a world that profits from your outrage, that's different, that's rare, that's mastery. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more at peace you are with yourself, the less you need from anyone else. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need closure from every wound. You don't need to chase explanations for every betrayal. Because when peace lives in you, chaos can't rent space. You begin to protect your peace the way others protect their image. You walk away not because you're weak, but because you value your energy. You let people be wrong about you, not because you're indifferent, but because you're free. And the world won't understand that at first. They'll say you changed. They'll say you don't care anymore. They'll try harder to provoke you, because your silence exposes their noise, but you'll keep choosing peace. Not for them, for you, because you've tasted what it feels like to not carry emotional baggage for miles. You've experienced the clarity of not explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You've felt the strength in walking away from conversations that go nowhere, And once you feel that kind of peace, you won't trade it for anything, not for being right, not for being liked, not even for being understood. You see, peace doesn't mean you don't feel things. It doesn't mean you're numb or detached. It means you've learned the art of responding, not reacting, the power of walking in your truth, not chasing anyone else's version of it. You become the calm in the room full of chaos, the one who doesn't match every tone, the one who doesn't rise to every bait, because you've realized some things just aren't worth your fire, some battles only exhaust you, not elevate you. And some people will never understand peace because they've made drama their identity, but that's not your lane anymore, your peace, that's sacred. It's your boundary, your energy, your discipline. It's what keeps you centered when the world is pulling you in every direction. And yes, it takes time to get there. It takes unlearning the habit of reacting to everything. It takes humility to not clap back, to not prove yourself, to not defend every opinion. But once you train yourself to protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it actually does, everything starts to shift. You start showing up differently. You walk into rooms with quiet confidence. You stop over-explaining. You stop needing to be included, validated, chosen. You choose yourself. You choose your peace, and people notice. They feel it. They may not say it out loud, but your stillness commands more respect than any outburst ever could. Because peace isn't passive, it's powerful, and when you master it, nobody, not insults, not silence, not storms, can shake you. So when the world tells you to flex harder, speak louder, fight more, you do the opposite. You breathe, you pause, you smile, because you know something they don't. Peace is the real flex, and once you find it, you never let it go.